You're listening to KCYP 97.7 The City. This is Scarlet Rose, and you're now listening to RGV Rocks. Thank you for the intro, Audex. Remember, you're listening to KCYP 97.7 FMLP The City. This is, I was about to say DJ Destiny. I mean Scarlet Rose from RGV Rocks, and as well as my co-host.
Hello, Rock and Rudy.
And welcome to RGV Rocks. I just want to remind everyone that you're listening to KCYP 97.7 FMLP The City, and it is a nonprofit organization that promotes local artists such as myself and is the home of indie music. We are now accepting donations to our website, www.thecity977.com, and as well as sponsorships to keep this radio station thriving. For more information on paying donations, sponsorships, or business advertisement, feel free to contact Joe Martinez at 956-789-0702 or by email at martinezjoe@hotmail.com. I'll also be leaving the donation links in the description below for the city, not the city, city of McAllen. I'm talking about the city of our radio station. So for the people who don't know who we are, what we do on this show, RGV Rocks is a radio show and now an online podcast dedicated to local talent events and all the wonderful people in the RGV, such as you and I. Rudy, do you want to announce our special guest for today?
But of course I do, Scarlet Rose. Thank you very much. One of my longtime old friends. I've known this guy for, I would have said a little bit more than 20 years as well. He is a professor. He is an artist. He is a well-educated man. He is soon to be, he is one of the greatest air jocks that we have on our show, Q94.5. Ladies and gentlemen, from the show Rock and Jazz, this is Mr. Charlie Corona. How you doing, Charlie?
Wow, how about that intro? I don't think I could live up to that. Thank you for that very flattering intro. Charlie Corona, that's right. I would usually say part-time DJ, full-time aphrodisiac. The originator of the Naked Human Pyramid. The Duke of Debauchery.
Oh my gosh.
The only DJ with a heart of gold and tooth to match. And it's nice to, immediately, the first thing I want to say is that I started in radio in 99. And, as Rudy remembers back then, there's a lot of colorful characters, at the radio station, some of them with attitude, some of them with ego, or all of them with egos. And you're trying to navigate and you're trying to fit in and figure out who's cool, who's weird, who do you avoid, who is awkward. And one of my very first memories over there, and back then, Rudy, was Sunburst Media, as you remember, before it was purchased by Entravision. It was Sunburst Media. And one of the first persons that I met was Rudy, and you were always very, very, right from the start, very kind of gentle, okay, here's how it works. And you didn't have the ego that, some of the morning DJs had, or some of all of the characters there. So I wanted to, first of all, thank you for right from the start. I knew I can trust this guy. And this guy will help me navigate through the radio station. And I wanted to thank you right off the top, because that's a big deal. I mean, when you're the foreigner coming in, you're the new guy. You got to have someone, that at least one person that you can trust, and you were that person. And colorful times, colorful people. But thank you for being just so gracious and kind of walking me through Sunburst Media back in the day.
Well, I thank you for that. I had already been there 2 years before you got there, because I got on the air in '97. And yeah, I see what you're talking about, our colorful people and everything like that. Especially like Rick Diaz, John DeLisi, boy, those guys, woo-hoo, let me tell you. Those are the ones that would tell you, be careful with these, I remember those days. They were the ones that would get us in trouble, let me put it to you that way, but it was great times, it was. Well, let's get the show started here. Let's find out more about Mr. Charlie Corona and his great experiences with the Q94.5 and his first human naked pyramid.
The originator.
There you go, originator. That's what it was. And also doing the Rock and Chaz show. That has been such a success for you guys. It's so awesome to see that you know, you and Rock and Roll James, that's who we're talking about, going a step further and beyond on your PVT show that you all do. A lot of great talents that you all get on your show and everything as well. And one of the great talents you're going to have pretty soon on May the 18th is going to be me and Scarlett Rose going on your show pretty soon. That's going to be fun and excitement. I can't wait to see that one happening. But let's get this show started. And Miss Scarlett Rose, what's your first question for Charlie?
Okay, since you are first, since you haven't been on our show before, I'm going to ask the question that we always ask one of our new interviewees. There we go. What is your favorite part about the Valley and why?
That it's local. You know, first of all, everything it seems like is being shipped out farther and farther away by a corporation. And one of the things that's happening is we're starting to see more people that are entrepreneurs. And hey, you know what? We have a big local scene that needs to be shown and shared, and that's a big deal. It's a big deal because you know it's easy for the bigger and the bigger companies to ship things off to far away and like, oh, this, you know, this DJ's from, you know, Dallas and this reporter is from what, you know, but the fact that you share and you support everything that is local is a great thing. So anytime that's happening, you gotta participate. So thank you for doing that.
There you go. There you go. So that's basically like what we do here at the show. We do nothing
Yeah.
about the Valley talents, and you know, we like to bring out people that got the talents. You know, it would be radio jocks, be a regular DJ, be an MC, party coordinator, even a magician or a musician. You know, anything with a talent you got and you have Valley talent. That's what we do here at RGV Rocks. And you've got a great talent, of course, Mr. Corona there. And I like the pictures you sent me, by the way. So you all get ready to see those pictures. We're going to be posting up too. Let me ask you something, Charlie. As you being on your personality, how has that helped you improve more? Would you say, or should I say, it helped you improve more on your skills of communication with people?
Well, you know, it really opens the door because especially, you know, pre-internet, when people find out you're on the radio, it opens up the door and now it's up to you to step up and perform. Now, I'm a professor at South Texas College, and this is kind of weird to say, but one of the reasons they allowed me to start teaching I started teaching in 2006 was because the gentleman that was in charge of the sociology department, he knew me from the Q.
There you go.
This guy's a radio. And even though I had never taught before, he knew I could communicate. He knew I could elaborate in detail. And of course, he just generally liked me as a human being. You know, he liked what he heard. And it's odd to think that being a DJ on the radio would open a door to be a professor, but that's literally, and I'm not exaggerating, that's literally what happened. And I was just so blessed by that. And anytime there's an opportunity that I relish, I take it to the full extent. I mean, when you think about radio, it was in 1999, and I was on that station on and off for decades. And then I started teaching at STC back in 2006, and I'm still there today.
Wow.
So when you think about those relationships, if you can keep them for decades, that's a blessing. And even my friendship with you, Rudy, I mean, you helped me open that door, and then that's something that you always appreciate. So yeah, when you talk about communication and opening doors, I can't think of a bigger opportunity than giving you the opportunity to be an instructor at a college. I mean, I don't think that any other person could say that in North America. I mean, so it was a true blessing. Yeah.
It is.
Quick question for you, Charlie. Because that going into communications, especially especially teaching it, it's a broad spectrum of like different kind of classes. What classes have you taught?
Okay, so my master's is in sociology. So I've taught intro to sociology, marriage and the family, and social problems. Now, one of my long-term goals in life was to teach two subjects. So in my mind, I thought I'm going to get my master's in my 30s, and then I'm going to get more graduate hours in my 40s. I did both of those things. So I got more graduate hours in my 40s. I got psychology hours. And unfortunately, I was laid off from the sociology department, and it broke my heart. I was devastated. My dream job is gone. It's, and then whenever I would reapply, of course, I would lose to somebody with a PhD from Maryland or something. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to get more hours in psychology just so I could now teach both things. Now I could be maybe a little bit more of an asset, right? And it's funny what COVID did. COVID did a lot of weird things and a lot of weird scenarios. And one of the things that COVID did is it made 2 psychology instructors retire. They said, you know what, we're sick of online. We're fed up of online. We're retiring. And now there was a position open. And the chair of the psychology department, because I was teaching, just one class here, one class there. He said, Charlie, you should apply. You've got the experience. You've been with this college a long time. And I want you to think about this fact. I don't have a master's in psychology. I only have 18 graduate hours. I was competing with people who had a master's, but I had way more experience, and they decided to vote for me. And that's how I started teaching psychology at STC, because of my years of experience. And so going back to your question, I've also taught now Intro to Psychology. And I'm teaching a class called Learning Frameworks, which is for brand new students, about time management and emotional intelligence, making decisions for the long term instead of for immediate gratification. And so those are the classes that I've taught so far, and it's been a blessing.
Wow.
There you go. Good
I
to hear.
didn't even think about like you going to psychology or like sociology, because I was like, okay, radio jock, he has to be some sort of communication major, that he's like a professor. Maybe it's there. Like I would never thought. I was like, wow, really?
Well,
Yeah, not by looking at him, but yeah, Charlie's a very smart person. Let me tell you, he's got brains out there.
Thank you for that, Rudy.
Yeah. So, Charlie, let me ask you something. Now that you're also you become a professor. Oh, let me. I'm putting that 2 words. A professor in two categories, if you will. Do you seem to like the second stuff that you're learning now better than what you first originally your dream was?
Good question. I love sociology because it's about culture and the rules of different cultures and group behavior. But I'm starting to really fall in love with psychology because everyone can really relate to it. And of course, if you make it fun, like a DJ can, because I think of myself not as initially at my core a professor. I think of myself at my core as actually a game show host, or more like a radio DJ. But you can lend those skills to other things. And I think the best instructors are not the academic ones, because they're so smart they don't even know how to share information or make it fun, and they make it boring. And that's one of the worst things that you could do, is to make a subject boring. But going back to your question, yeah, I'm starting to. I think psychology. I'm starting to fall in love with a little bit more than sociology, because everyone can kind of relate to it, and people walk in initially already hooked. You don't have to sell them on anything. They watch CSI and they watch things about serial killers, and they're already walking in already hooked. So all you got to do is put a little bit of salt and sugar, and then they fall in love. So yeah.
Oh, there you go. So you do a little potion magic and stuff on them. I see what you're saying.
Turn into
Abracadabra, Charlie Corona. There you go. Miss Scarlett Rose, you got another question for Mr. Corona.
Actually, going into your origin story about being a radio jock, did that come before or after the degree?
When I finished my bachelor's degree, I was working at Channel 4. And I couldn't see myself, I really, because they would do news stories, of course, about like the city of Donna has bad water. And I was like, I'm really not interested in reporting about things like that. Radio seemed way more fun. And I had a friend of mine who Rudy knows, Mr. Henry, remember, Gandhi?
Gandhi.
He would a friend. He looks just like Gandhi, hence the nickname. He would do overnights on Kipasa 99.5, and he said they need someone to drive the vans. Now I thought all I need is to get in. Once I'm in, I can navigate the waters and become a DJ. So I was actually hired to drive the vans for remotes, and I knew if I could make the program director, one of them, I needed to win over just one. And so I decided to win over Alex Duran, who was in charge of KVOY, because I knew he thought I was funny. And all I was going to do is, Alex, just give me one night. Just give me Thursday nights. That's it. I just want to practice being a DJ. Now, what you do is you make it seem like you're asking for something little, but once you've got the skills and they need you, they need you. So I played it, Alex, just one night a week. It's just Thursday night. And that way their overnight guy, Mr. Marco Trigo, could go and hang out with Alex and they could go have fun. So by asking for a little tiny bit, I was actually opening a door for something much grander. And I then began to DJ more on KVOY. And then Alex became in charge of the queue. And I said, Alex, I need more hours, help me out. Just give me one shift on the queue, just one. And that one shift turned into decades. And I loved every minute of it. And so there's a lesson here. If you could just get in the door, get people to trust you, get people to like you. And of course, you got to put in the time and the effort and make sacrifices. And as Rudy knows, back in those days, you're going to work on Easter. You're going to work on Thanksgiving. You're going to work on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And that's what you do to make it work. And that's what I did. And everybody, it's funny, everybody, oh, you're a DJ on the queue. Isn't that great? You're a DJ on the queue. Yeah, it is. But I've given up a lot of Thanksgivings with my family, a lot of Easters with my family, New Year's Eve. But I did it because I had a life goal. And it's up to you to weigh what do you want to do versus, what is worth your sacrifice. And so I decided, you know what, I want to do it. And I did do it. And so that's kind of my origin story, going to your question. Hey, so what is your origin story? Wait, when did you, right after I got my bachelor's, that's when I started DJing. And then I got another job at South Texas College. It was called student activities. We work with the clubs and the organizations, and you hire mariachis and you work with the Spanish club and all that. And that's where the chair of the sociology department, number one, he knew me as, oh yeah, that's the guy from student activities. He's a real nice guy. Oh, but he's also a DJ on the queue. That's interesting. And then once I got my master's, he was like, well, now that you've got a master's and I know you and I trust you, why don't you jump on board? So it's funny, we talk about the leapfrogging effect of life and how you can open doors, and you got to be patient and you got to put in the time, but it all kind of comes together with a little bit of dedication. So
basically it's he got educated first, then you got on the radio.
Yes.
But little by little, one night at a time, Alex Duran, if he hadn't have agreed to do that one night, maybe we would not have known Charlie Corona as Charlie Corona. You still probably would have been that van driver, but which is still not a big deal, because when I was, with the Q94.5 doing Rescue 945, driving up and down the streets, helping people out on the roads and stuff like that, there would be times where I would show up. Shiloh Stevens, he was our program director at Q94.5. He would always tell me, Rock and Rudy, I need you to take the van and go set up over here and everything. And I would take off and go do that. And I would do my own remotes from there.
Yeah.
So I was the one putting up all the banners and everything. And then, Q94.5 out here at Brothers Ford and stuff like that, or whatever it was we were doing, whatever remote we were doing. But yeah, that's what it was. I mean, you would have to work. I was working like endlessly. I would go in at midnight and get out at 6 o'clock in the morning, be on the road, Rescue 945 till 9, and go back to the studio, go do setups, and then come back to the studio, be making commercials at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, go home and sleep, and then come back and work at midnight. So it was just too much fun. It is. And I know you're having a lot of fun over there, right, Corona?
Oh yeah. And one more thing that, Rudy, so in radio, every DJ wants to do a remote, because a remote means extra money. Like, hey, we're over here at the corner of Jackson and Hackberry, Bird Hog, come on by. So every DJ wants a remote. And So, and it's very difficult to get a remote. And they usually would give a part-timer like myself, or maybe someone like Rudy. Rudy, do you remember they would give us unpaid remotes? Like it would be a remote, like, hey, they would say, hey, Rudy, you want to do remote? Or hey, Charlie, you want to do remote? Like, yeah, I'd love to do remote.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
it's
of
not
course.
paid. It's not a paid remote. I mean, you're on the clock, but you're not getting the big money. And
The
it would
big
be
remote
like,
money.
yeah, just for being on the clock. And it would usually be like, remember, Rudy, at the White Wing games, White Wing Stadium? We would have to do those remotes, and we wouldn't get paid a big salary. We would just be on the standard on the clock. But hey, if you want to break in, you got to pay your dues. And so we would do that.
Yeah, I remember those. I remember that. And also going to the what do you call the Greyhound Park in Harlingen.
Yeah.
The dog track racing stuff. I remember going over there and putting up the stuff for Rock and Roll James, as a matter of fact, or putting up the stuff for Robert Ceballos, or putting up stuff for AC Cruz, and I'm working with Q94.5, but I'm doing stuff for Que Pasa.
Yes.
But that's what it was, but that's just, like you said, putting in the work, and we did, and look where we're at now.
Yeah, and it's funny, those relationships that you make, how they last the test of time. Of course, the real ones, the true friendships, the ones that are genuine. And a perfect example is right now. So I'm working with Rock and Roll James. He has his own YouTube channel. He calls it PVT, Professional Valley Talk. And his initial idea was, hey, let's do a show on the Q's Facebook to show the station, hey, we're team players, right? We're team players and we have value. And I said, okay, let's do it. So we called it the Rock and Chaz Show. And we did it on Facebook. And almost immediately, James was like, you know what? We should do this for ourselves instead of the Q's Facebook. And I said, well, it doesn't matter to me. So we did like 3 shows for the Q's Facebook. And then we shifted over to PVT because we thought, let's work for ourselves. And really, he says work for ourselves, but really it's his channel. And I was flattered that because Rudy, as you know, James can talk a lot.
A lot.
And
is that right, Scarlet Rose?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could attest that. Oh my god.
Yeah, you guys know that you've had him on 2 times, and he doesn't need someone to help him talk. It's not like he needs that. But he did it out of just friendship, or he just thought it was a good idea for a brand or whatever he thought. I don't even really initially know, but we know that he doesn't need help to talk, but he decided, hey, I'm going to make the Rock and Chaz Show. And this April, it'll be 2 years. And the show has always had sponsors, and it's kind of bizarre, the people that subscribe, because they're from all over the country. Like, this guy is from Canada, this guy's from Fort Myers, and random people from all over. But going back to making connections and knowing people, knowing Rudy for over 20 years and knowing James for over 20 years, if the friendships are a true friendship and have merit and substance, they will last. And so here I am all these years later, and I'm working with James. We have sponsors. The show is very we've got to, I've gotten to interview more celebrities on PVT than I did on Q94.5, which kind of blows my mind. We've done Buff Bagwell, we've done Kurt Angle, Mark Henry, some of the Dallas Cowboys, and it's a true blessing to talk to various individuals, and we look forward to having you guys in May. And so it doesn't really matter if it's someone that's a Buff Bagwell or just a guy that's a local wrestler or a local DJ. We have fun with it too. And so really hold on to those friendships that have merit, because they'll last a lifetime.
Just recently, well, not recently, but a couple of weeks back, you guys had Gary Rodriguez and
Billy Santiago.
Yeah, Billy Santiago. And I remember, getting, my internship, with the Mad Mexican and stuff like that. And I remember seeing Gary running around there, Billy B. And as a matter of fact, Billy one time was with Q94.5, and then he went over to the Wow, oh no, not Q94.5, the KGBT and then Wow 104, back to was B104. And boy, it was just so good seeing them guys again. I hadn't seen them in such a long time. The last time I ever saw Gary was he went to Fantasyland Skate Center where I used to work at, which is now where the station is. And right next to it, or should I say it's right next to the station. It's a bingo now. And whatchamacallit, Gary would go over there with his kids and go skate around and everything, fall on the ground and get hurt and everything. And I'd be on the microphone, oh, Gary just falling on the ground and stuff. And he come up to me, goes, man, don't be telling people I'm falling. Like, well, what's the truth?
Yeah, it's great. It's great to form a community, and that's really what it is. You know, you form a community, and it really is flattering and fun at the same time, and to form those networks. So it's been a blessing. So every Wednesday on YouTube, it's the Rock and Chaz Show. It's the longest running show on his network, which I'm proud of because he's worked with his children. He's had shows with his, he's done shows by himself, but the longest running show is the one that we do together. And so I'm grateful and flattered for that. And we've had it'll be 2 years, as I said, and I've had a lot of fun. You know, to think that it's a paid gig, it's a lot of fun, and one of my favorite segments I get to do is I have a segment called Chaz's Collectible. And if you see behind me, some of these posters I've shown on the Rock and Chaz Show. Yeah. Like here we have a picture, a movie. These are original movie posters. This is Conan the Barbarian. And by the way, whenever I buy a movie poster, I laminate it at FedEx right here on 10th Street. That way it's taken care of forever. So here's Conan the Barbarian, the original with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Rudy, did you ever see this movie Excalibur? Do you remember this old movie about
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. One of my favorite movies.
It's a phenomenal movie. I've shown Excalibur, and then over here I have Every Which Way But Loose with Clint Eastwood. And then right here I have a Star Wars collection, and these are originals, and these were mine when I was a child. I still have them from the 80s. So I have a little segment called Chaz's Collectible. And it's just a lot of fun, and I hope everybody gives it a chance. And I look forward to having you guys there as well.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure they will give it a chance. I mean, it's kind of hard not to because, I mean, you do pull out some real good toys and stuff with there because I've seen a couple of segments that you're doing there. One of my favorite things that I like is I like how the way you and Rock and Roll James bond, you know, like how the way you communicate with each other, you know, just like me and Scarlet Rose, you know, we know each other. We already know what we're thinking. We already know what we're doing. It's because, like, not only because I've known her forever, but because when we started doing this, actually, she was already learning how to play guitar. She was singing and stuff like that. And I would go to her brother, which is Derek, DDS Productions, if you will. Let's plug that in there. Might as well make him feel good. I would always tell him, I want Destiny to learn how to be a DJ. Well, she knows how to do this and turn this and the mixer and stuff. And I go, no. She needs to, I mean, she sings, but we need to make her talk, you know, and he would be like, no, I don't want her to do that. I go, yeah, I know you don't, but I'm going to do it anyways. And he would get mad because I would still do it. But Scarlet Rose, she has grown up to be a wonderful lady. She's learning. She's learned more. She's getting more experience. And she's getting better and better, but she's too quiet. Scarlet Rose, you're okay? You're over there.
Too quiet, apparently. Wow. But before we go on the show, I was going to ask one more question. How do you balance life between PVT, what's it called, the Q, and also being a professor at STC?
Okay, well, one of the things that happened during COVID is that the radio station decided to scale down, and the building essentially became empty. And I was one of the last people to be let go, so I was let go from the Q. And I didn't feel necessarily heartbroken because we had seen so many people go. I mean, it was inevitable. And it wasn't a shock. I mean, the station would just become an empty building. So when the Q decided to, it was funny how life worked out. The Q let me go. And also because of coronavirus, as I told you earlier, some of the senior professors had said, you know what, we're kind of done with teaching online. were going to retire. And that opened up an opportunity for me. So the Q closed and STC opened up because there was an opportunity. So now all I have to do is focus on teaching at STC, and I have the Rock and Chat show on Wednesday nights. So my life is a little easier to juggle, a little easier because I don't have the responsibilities of the Q. And I get to focus on teaching because they're going to keep giving me these new, there are other classes that I'm going to eventually teach. There's a class called, oh God, what is it called? It's basically a sex ed class. So I'm gonna have to find out all the proper terms. I can't use the street words or the words that we grew up used in junior high. I got to find out all the, you know, the clinical terms for the sexual. I forgot what it's called. I think it's called.
We'll just call it up and down section. How's that sound?
Right. Yeah. The missionary class.
There you go.
So you know, I get to focus on my education. So that's how I balance it. But there's a lot to balance, and it's very difficult. And one thing I want to tell you, Scarlett, as far as like, and Rudy, you were saying, oh, I like the chemistry between the both of you. I like the chemistry. One of the secrets is it's not knowing when to talk, but it's knowing when to stay quiet. And you know, I work with James, and a lot of it is he's going to navigate the ship, and I have to find and pick my spots. Now, if you start crowbarring it in, it becomes a little bit awkward. And then he's going to eventually think, well, why do I have this guy around? He's crowbarring and he's hijacking and making it awkward. And it's been 2 years, so I don't think he's thinking any of those things. But it's a very specific skill, knowing when to talk, but more importantly, knowing this is not your time, and you kind of sit back a little bit. And it's a very, very, it's a skill set that requires patience and practice. And you can't have two rock and roll Jameses. It won't work. It wouldn't work. It would be too much. It would be overload. It's yin and yang. And I can see that the both of you have that as well. You know, it's yin and yang. If you have two rock and Rudies trying to, you know, navigate the ship, there can only be one chef in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to thank you for saying about the chemistry, and it does come natural because you cannot fake liking someone. Either you like them or you don't. Mm-hmm. You can't fake that. You can't fake a friendship for decades. I mean, either you're friends or you're not. And a lot of it is timing. So anyway, thank you for saying that, Rick.
Yeah, I know that working through the radio life and everything like that, it does get hectic at times because it does interfere with a lot of stuff that, you know, personal wise. But business is business, and the more you put in the radio, the more people know you. You know, like you're already embedded forever as an air jock. You know what I mean? You're in the books. No matter where you go, Charlie Corona, bam, Q94.5. They're not going to know you as Professor Corona, but they're going to know you as Air Jock Corona. You know what I mean? And that is one of the most greatest blessings ever that we have, because people know us, even though they can't see our faces until they go to a remote or we show up to an event. But otherwise than that, we are the big mouth behind the little mic. And people seem to like what we do because they listen, they tune in.
Yeah, it's a real blessing. And I now that radio slowly becomes a smaller segment of society because of the internet and everything else, I'm glad that we got to participate when during the window that we had, and it's always a blessing that we'll have with us.
Yes, it is. Miss Scarlett Rose, you got anything else you want to tell Mr. Corona?
Yes. What's it called? Since we're already at the end of our interview, thank you so much, Charlie. Sorry about that. I was wondering, do you have anything that you would like to put out social media wise, or maybe like the show plugins, you know?
I'm on Facebook, so you can just find me, Charlie Corona, on Facebook. That's my primary source of social media, and you can find me every Wednesday night the PVT network on YouTube. It's the Rock and Chaz Show, and it's a lot of fun. And I hope you tune in.
I would like to tell you one thing before we do go off the air. This is kind of like a question I should have probably asked at the beginning of the show, but it just clicked on me right now. If you were to run into yourself today, back then in 1999, what would you tell yourself?
I would have said, be patient. Even though it seems like life is very tedious, there's a lot of little tedious things, but eventually it pays off. And Rudy, we've seen a lot of people come and go, the Big Al's and the John DeLisis and all these people. And if you're patient and you put in the work, it will pay off. So don't discredit your patience,
There you go. Good shot. Good shot. Do you want to send out any shout outs to anybody before we close off the show?
I'd like to say hello to my lovely girlfriend, Lydia, who's helped me become a better professor, because she's a professor herself. So thank you for helping me become a better professor. And to everyone else, I want to tell you, be patient with yourself. And life is a long-term journey. So if you do something today, you'd be surprised. It's going to pay off. It could pay off in 5 years, in 7 years, in 10 years. Even meeting Rudy years ago, here we are. Now I'm on a show with you. I mean, who would ever have thought something like that? And then I'm going to have the both of you in May. And then it's funny, just be patient. And you're playing the long-term game. So be patient. So
there you go. All right. Well, I would like to go ahead and send out a shout out to my two beautiful ladies, which is Joanna and Darlene, and then my grandson. He's my little man right there, Carson. And also thank you, Charlie, for being on our show. Really appreciate you choosing to do this interview and being with us. And it's always a pleasure to see you. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Truly from the heart. You are from the heart, and you're a very humble person. I've known you forever, like you said. It is a true blessing to see that your success is getting bigger and better. And big old shout out to all our beautiful fans out there that are listening and watching, and also the Scarlet Rose.
Thank you so much, Rudy. I just want to remind everyone, if you would like to learn more about us or check us out about what we do on the show, make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Facebook and Instagram is just RGV Rocks, and Twitter is Rocks RGV. Once again, Facebook and Instagram is RGV Rocks, and Twitter is Rocks RGV. Thank you so much, Charlie, for joining us here on The City, and also as well as RGV Rocks. I want to remind everyone, I want to actually give out a shout out to everyone listening to KCYP 97.7 FMLP, The City, and I especially want to remind everybody, thank you for listening to our humble little show, and be here next time on KCYP 97.7 FMLP, The City. See ya.